Hello and welcome to Chicago Independent Television, a collection of progressive grassroots video reports from Chicago and beyond, produced entirely free from corporate influence or commercial support. I'm Jessica Popovac. In this episode, we commemorate two inspiring individuals who passed away last year, political activist Malachi Ritcher and indie media journalist Brad Will. We'll also include a report on the ongoing struggle of immigrant rights activist Elvira Arellano, who continues to hold vigil in a West Side church. And finally, we'll take a look at some decked-out Chicagoans who braved the cold to greet George W. Bush during a recent visit. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. We now turn to a memorial held in honor of Brad Will, a political activist, videographer, and journalist who was shot and killed in Oaxaca, Mexico while covering the recent popular uprisings. The outcry following his murder took the form of protests and demonstrations across the globe, including this one in Chicago.
Brad Will, presente! Brad Will, presente! Brad Will, presente! I have a message that the Chicago Independent Media Center was asked to communicate to the friends and compañeros of Brad Will who are today here, and for all of you. And if you'll just indulge me for a second, I'd like to read it. It's very brief. Brad Will was killed on October 27, 2006 in Oaxaca, Mexico, while working as a journalist for the global indie media network. He was shot in the torso while documenting an armed paramilitary assault on the popular Assembly of the Peoples of Oaxaca, a fusion of striking local teachers and other community organizations demanding direct democracy in Oaxaca and in Mexico. The members of the New York City Independent Media Center mourn the loss of this inspiring colleague and friend. We want to thank everyone who sent condolences to our offices and posted remembrances on the Indie Media site in New York. We share our grief with the people of our city and beyond who lived and worked and struggled with Brad over the course of his dynamic but short life. We can only imagine the pain of the people of Oaxaca who have lost 7 of their neighbors to this fight, including Emilio Alonso Fabian, a teacher, and who now are confronted with invasion by federal police forces in their city. All New York Indie Media wants, in compensation for the death, his death is the only thing that Brad ever wanted: justice. The New York Independent Media Center.
Estás bien, güey. ¡Bravo, güey! ¡Tranquilo!
There are protests and demonstrations around the world, not only for the murdered indie media journalist Brad Will, but for the people of Oaxaca. These are solidarity demonstrations, and they have erupted across Europe and the United States. Right now, the Mexican consulate in Buenos Aires has been occupied. The Mexican consulate in Rome has been occupied. The Mexican consulate in Barcelona has been occupied. The Mexican consulate in Madrid has been occupied. There are protests in San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, San Jose, Los Angeles, San Diego, Houston, Austin, Indianapolis. And the protest in Indianapolis occupied and closed down the Mexican consulate at 8 o'clock this morning. There have been arrests across the United States. I think one of my favorite photographs, which we just put up on the Chicago Independent Media Center panel, was Brad playing with a small child in Oaxaca. Right, they were playing the hand game, and she loved it, and he was having a great time. That's what Brad Will was. Right? We were robbed. This is people's media. This is your media, and all of you are a part of it. All of you. And so the one thing that Brad Will would want is not as much to talk about him, but to talk about what his video camera saw, the reality of the people of Oaxaca. That's the message he'd want to send, right? And he'd want you to do it with a smile and the memory of Brad laughing, right? And celebrating life. Brad Will, presente.
Presente!
Presente!
Hi, I'm Owen from the Working Bikes Cooperative, and you're watching Chicago Independent Television.
If elected, I'll lie about weapons of mass destruction as a pretext to invade another country.
I'll call myself an environmentalist, then gut clean air standards.
Our allies will go from respecting us to hating us, and I don't care.
I'll leave no child behind, unless they can't afford it.
I promise to keep you in a state of fear and anxiety, so you never question what we're doing.
And if you do, we'll call you unpatriotic.
Bring 'em on.
Welcome back to Chicago Independent Television. We now feature a segment about Malachi Ritcher, a local musician and political activist who recently committed suicide along a busy Chicago thoroughfare in protest of the occupation of Iraq.
Malachi Ritcher was a musician and political activist who took his own life in protest against the war in Iraq. On the morning of November 3, 2006, Malachi Ritcher, standing near the Millennium Flame along Chicago's Kennedy Expressway, accompanied with a protest sign reading "Thou shalt not kill," doused himself with gasoline and burned himself to death. 4 days later, a post by Tate Brazas on Chicago Indie Media's website read in part, "The only attention that this case has received was a blurb in the back of the Chicago Sun-Times and a mention on the local televised news. Each venue has treated the event as a mere suicide and an explanation for slower than usual traffic that morning." Brazas continues, "It is likely that no further attention will be brought to Malachi's death in the mainstream media. Malachi should not have died for a mention in the paper, completely stripped of his intention. I hope that this humble notice will serve as a spark for dialogue within this community." Within days of that post, coverage would indeed increase in Chicago's independent media community. And within weeks of Malachi's action, organizing efforts to bring more attention to the case would coalesce around a campaign called "I Heard You, Malachi."
Hey, I'm Jennifer Diaz. We're here protesting the fact that no one knows about Malachi Ritcher. He killed himself protesting the war. We think Americans need to know about this. Today we're out here on Michigan Avenue talking to people. We're handing out handbills, trying to educate people simply about the fact that this man did this. People are going to have different feelings about it. We understand that. We all have different feelings about it, but we think that this is something that needs to be talked about. And we want other Americans to know about it.
Outside the Kennedy Expressway during rush hour, not a single story on a Chicago TV station or newspaper. Well, even Chicago police officers haven't heard about it, I guess. I guess the media's done a good job of making sure no one finds out.
But people would find out. The campaign continued working, and coverage widened further, even reaching into national corporate media outlets like CNN, the Associated Press, and even the Chicago Tribune. On December 3, 2006, the 1-month anniversary of Malachi Ritcher's death, the campaign held another public demonstration and memorial over the Kennedy Expressway near where Malachi Ritcher died.
Since then, I've been fielding hundreds of emails from people all over the world, including hundreds of people right here in the U.S. that are really moved by this story. You know, word of mouth is a lot more primitive than our mainstream media and a lot slower, but the movement is really gaining steam now. People from all over the world are writing to say thank you for getting the word out about this man. I needed to know that he did this. It's really warms my heart to hear how many people care that someone was willing to give their life in protest of this war.
Have you gotten any negative response?
Actually, I've only received one negative email. Actually, I've gotten a couple of people that said, I laughed when I heard what he did or something like that, but really I've only received one kind of negative email about that. Ashley Haher of the AP picked up the story and wrote that story, and dozens of papers across the country picked it up. Most notably the Times, New York Times, and the Sun-Times picked that story up. The Tribune did their own article on it. But I've been getting emails from all kinds of people saying my small town paper ran this article, and I can't believe that this man did this 2 weeks ago and I haven't heard about it until now. Actually, the woman here filming for CNN Today called me 2 days ago to let me know that it was the first she'd heard of it, and she wanted to do the story, but she couldn't do the story until she'd heard of it.
The fact that this story could have just, to put it bluntly, died with Malachi had not efforts been organized by you and by others to help to promote it. What do you think does that say about the state of affairs, our mainstream media, and related issues?
You know, when something like this can happen and people not find out about it, I think there's something wrong with our media. I mean, they've got all kinds of reasons for why it wasn't covered. It was 4 days before the election, there was a lot going on, had other stuff on the radar, afraid of copycat behavior and others. The fact of the matter is, I think this is an important political act that was done intentionally. A man doused himself with gasoline and gave his life in protest of this war. Other Americans need to know about that.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kelly with Voices in the Wilderness, based here in Chicago, and you're watching Chicago Independent Television.
Kids across America are digging deep. President Bush's tax cuts mean big tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. Paying for them won't be easy, but these kids are ready to do their part. In 2003 alone, George Bush put every child in America $7,400 into debt. To these children, we have one thing to say.
Thanks, kids.
Easily paid for by Billionaires for Bush.